Good afternoon everyone and welcome to this meeting of the City Plans panel. My name is Councillor Jules Hesselwood and I will be chairing today's meeting. Could I remind everyone that today's meeting is being live streamed on the City Council YouTube channel so that the public can observe the meeting without needing to be present here at the Civic Hall. Could I also remind members of the public present that this is a formal meeting, and whilst we welcome attendance, we ask that proceedings are observed quietly and without interruption, please. Participants in the meeting are asked to maintain a courteous and respectful manner in asking questions and making comments, members. City Plans panel deals with applications from the city centre as well as the largest and most significant applications that the council receives. The aim of the panel is to hear all the relevant information from applicants, registered speakers and council officers to help members of the panel make their decision. Can I now invite members and officers to introduce themselves and mute your microphone once you have introduced yourself. So we'll start on my left, please.
Good afternoon everyone, my name is Daljit Singh, I lead the Central Area Planning team.
Good afternoon, Tim Hart from the City Centre Planning team.
Hello, Gillian MacLeod, I'm representing Highways and Transportation.
Good afternoon everybody, Councillor Katie Dye from Killingbeck and Seacroft Ward.
Good afternoon everybody, Councillor Jones from Horsforth substituting for Councillor Buxter.
Afternoon, John Garvan, Councillor Horsforth Ward.
Councillor Annie Maloney, Beeston and Holbeck Ward.
Good afternoon everyone, Councillor Asghar Khan, Councillor for Bermontos and Richmond Hill Ward.
Good afternoon, Councillor Peter Carlill, Carlin Farsley Ward.
Good afternoon, Lewis Footitt, part of the Plans Panel Admin team.
Afternoon, my name is Robert Finnegan, I'm a councillor that represents the Morley North Ward.
Hello everyone, I'm Councillor Colin Campbell.
Good afternoon, Councillor Barry Anderson. I do have some water here. Councillor Barry Anderson from Adeline Wharfdale Ward. Got there in the end.
Good afternoon, Stephen Varley, Design Advisor.
Good afternoon, Debbie Oldham, and I'm clerk to the panel today.
Good afternoon, Amy Davis from Legal Services.
Good afternoon, David Feeney, Chief Planning Officer.
Good afternoon, Jonathan Carr, Head of Development Management.
Good afternoon, everybody. Councillor Dan Kane from the Alwoodley Ward.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Moving on to the agenda then, item 1, please.
Thank you, Chair. Under agenda item 1, there are no appeals against the refusal of inspection of documents. Agenda item 2, there's no exempt information. Agenda item 3, there's no late items. Under agenda item 4, could I ask members to declare any interest they may have? I take silence as there are none. Under agenda item 5, Councillor Jones is substituting for Councillor Brooks today. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So agenda item number 6, the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 10th of October, which is on page 7 of your packs. I will go through the minutes for accuracy first of all, and then I'll take any matters arising. The first page, which is on page 7, page 8, and page 9. Okay, thank you everyone. Can we accept those as a true and correct record of the last meeting? Okay, thank you everybody. Okay, any matters arising from those minutes? No, okay, thank you everybody. So without further ado then, we will move on to agenda item number 7, which is 42 the Headrow, and can I invite Tim to make the presentation, please?
Thanks very much, Councillor. Yes, there was a site visit at 42 the Headrow this morning, which some members were attended, and we had a good look around the building. That actually follows a pre-application presentation to Plans Panel back in July of 2022. Just very briefly in relation to co-living, for those members who haven't heard of the concept before, it's a form of long-term residential accommodation It's not a fixed product, and there's a wide range of types of co-living, but they all follow a similar model, primarily with a smaller studio supported by extensive range of communal and shared facilities around the building, and that's the approach taken at Headrow House. I'm pleased to be able to bring this application to panel today. As I say, there was pre-application back in July 2022. When the application came in, there was then a pause in relation to the progress of the application whilst the co-living position paper went through the process, and subsequently there was a further delay whilst consideration of viability matters were going through again the process. But I'm pleased to report that the scheme is fully viable and fully policy compliant affordable housing sum is agreed. So just some, if the thing works. That way?
Yeah, towards Lewis. If you point towards Lewis.
No, work that way. So, thanks, Daljit. So Headrow House is located at and the Headrow. I think many members will no doubt be familiar with the building, occupied by Direct Line for many years, and I think Bank of Scotland before that, and I believe built as the tax office. And here's some images of the building being built in the early 1950s. It was the last building on the northern side of the Headrow, which followed the Blomfield plan. So Headrow House today, it's a 10-storey brick and stone building, commercial units at ground level and office space above that. Direct Line left the building nearly 4 years ago now, and it's been vacant since that point. And on the corner of Albion Street and Headrow, the Halifax Building Society left 18 months ago. This is the access into the offices from Dortmund Square. I'll say this is the access. If you can see where there's a lady with a turquoise top, that's the entrance position. And inside the building, 1950s building, that's had some improvements to it, primarily during the 1990s, but certainly a tiring building and not being able to attract any office occupiers over recent years. This is an image just at the end of Wormald Row. The shutters on the right-hand side give you access down to or give you vehicular access down into the basement of the building. And just a couple of images of the basement. It's a 4-level basement, historically accommodating quite a lot of car parking. And a couple of views of Wormald Row. And obviously that's the street that sits between the building and St John's Centre. And Wormald Row functions as an access point into St John's Centre, but also attracts quite a lot of other parking as well as people drop people off. So this is a section directly cutting through the building, which tries to give a flavour of the wholesale approach in relation to the scheme that is brought forward in front of members. The basement areas would be utilised for plant, for bike storage, some of the amenity functions that are proposed. At ground floor level, the commercial units would be retained and not affected by the development. And then working up through the building, the main body of the core of the building. Can I point with this? Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. So in the main body of the core of the building, some of the main amenity areas which are proposed, and then working up through the different levels, studios facing out onto the Headrow on this side. Now, I'll just take you through the building vertically in relation to the different uses. I won't dwell on any particular image, but please ask me to come back if move too quickly through the slides. The right-hand side of the diagram gives you an indication of 3 of the floor levels in the basement, and the light purple colour are proposed areas for personal storage. You can see an image of a mesh cage which would be utilised effectively, where people could use those spaces to keep bulky items. I think the combined amount of space for that is 346 square metres. On the left-hand side of the image, we're on basement 3, an area for private dining, which residents might wish to use. Moving up a level into basement 2, referred to as a social hub. Lots of different types of seating arrangements there, opportunities for all sorts of socialisation. Moving on up a level again, this is a gym area which some residents might wish to use. Up onto ground level now, you can see the entirety of the building. As I mentioned, the commercial units aren't involved as part of the scheme, but the access that we were looking at before off Dortmund Square is in that position and takes you through to the lift core, the reception area, and the new lift that would be introduced in this location here, which provides direct access down into the basement levels. The coloured area there, I believe, is a management suite. Bit of a lag. So this is just a zoomed-in image of that space. Some members this morning saw the current arrangements. There's not any radical changes here, but the proposal is really about improving the entrance in terms of making it more accessible with new doors, door facilities to enhance accessibility. Clearly, there would be a new decoration to the spaces as well. So we've moved up a level now to the first floor of the building. The green colours, trying to see what colour come out on yet. The green colour motif on the diagram, those are all studios. The yellow areas are shared kitchens, excuse me, and the pink central area is the shared amenity space. So looking back at that central amenity space, half of that space would be triple height. Members this morning saw it's a dark and dingy, well of a building in the central part of the building at the moment, but the opportunity is taken to cover over that area above third floor level and then knock out into the centre of the building to create a large amenity space that could be used as a lounging area or co-working and those sorts of facilities. And of course, it could change in terms of the use of the area during the day. And this is an image of that space, the 3-storey element on the right-hand side of the image, with a central feature stair, which takes you up successive levels into some of the other amenity spaces in the building. So we've moved up onto the second floor now. Again, the green, I shan't say this again, but the green is the studios, the pink amenity spaces, and the yellow areas are the shared kitchens. And this is an example of one of those shared kitchens. There are 19 shared kitchens in the building, 2 on every floor. Each of the shared kitchens, 2 on every floor apart from the 10th floor where there'd be 1, but there's only 4 studios on that level. Each of the shared kitchens themselves would provide for 3 cookers, 3 4-ring hobs, 3 sinks, areas for preparation areas, lots of storage, large fridge, together with seating area to accommodate 12 people. So as I say, there's, as you've noticed on the diagrams of the floor levels, there are two of these on each of the floors. Moved up a floor level, a very similar arrangement. Now those pink areas which we looked at down at first floor level, on the second floor level they have different functions. On the second floor the proposal is for a library area potentially, and the third floor a cinema room. Now what you can see on this diagram as well, on the second and third floor levels are proposals for a laundry, and each of those laundries would accommodate 10 washers, 10 dryers and a number of ironing boards, as well as seating area and games facilities for those people who wish to wait in the space. We've moved up a level now of the building, and at this point the building cuts back on the northern side adjacent to Wormald Row. So the area that I've coloured green here is where the building is cut back, and that's the roof level at the moment, which currently accommodates areas of plant. The proposal here is to remove the plant, as I mentioned at the outset. Most of the plant is going down into the basement, and replace that area with a roof terrace, an indication of how it could be laid out here with areas of seating and planting for residents. Oops, let's jump it now. And that's just an image of how it might look on a nice summer's day. So we're moving up through the building again. 5th to 7th floors are identical. Notice continuing to have 2 shared kitchens per floor. Do apologise for the delay. On 9th floor, there's slight change in that some of the accommodation, because the building sits back a bit at this point, it steps in. There's an opportunity to provide some of those studios with small external terraced areas. And onto the 10th floor, the top level of the building, currently accommodating lots of plant. Most of the plant on this level is going to be located onto the eastern leg of the limb of the building into this space. The existing plant room would be reconfigured to provide 4 studios, a shared kitchen, and the remainder of the space would be laid out as a roof terrace for residents. And that's what's depicted in this diagram in relation to the landscaping proposals for that area. And some images of what that space could look like. So just summing up in relation to the location of the amenity spaces, the left-hand diagram gives you an indication of where those are located, but focused around the centre and the lower levels of the building, but also extending up all the way to the top of the building. On the right-hand side, the diagram shows how the circulation areas and residential accommodation wraps around those amenity spaces. A diagram or an image on the left-hand side of one of the social spaces down ground level, and you won't be able to see the information, but lots of information there about the different types of areas that we've just been looking at. And this diagram reflects back on that initial section through the building that I was showing you, and gives you perhaps a potential way in which a couple of residents might use and move through the building during the day from their studio where they will sleep, potentially use the facilities, the kitchen facilities in each studio for their breakfast, but then go down the building, go into some of the co-working areas, and then moving up through the building as they finish work and going into some of the lounge areas or cinema rooms. And equally from the other side of the building, a resident who might have different journeys, but there are interactions between those people as they use some of those shared facilities. In terms of the different types of the studios proposed, the 6 typologies shown here, clearly it's a conversion of an existing building using an existing structure, and one of the principal approaches is that each room should have a minimum of two windows facing out onto the street. Each of those studios shown here have them, as have all the rooms. And I think some of the rooms at upper levels have more than 2 windows. On the left-hand side is an image I want you just to have a look at, because that's the smallest of the studios at 27 square meters. It's probably the most typical unit as well in relation to the numbers of them. But it is the smallest one. The average size overall of the studios is 28.5 square meters. Say they range from 27 square meters to 42. And this is a visual of that minimum sized studio apartment looking from a position close to the windows, if you were looking in from outside. So I don't want to state the obvious, but just to point out a double bed, and the double bed would be a bed which lifts up to provide storage space, full range of full height wardrobes. Members this morning saw the existing office accommodation, which is lifted above the structural floor plate, and also there's suspended ceiling. Those would be removed to increase the height of the space and the feel of spaciousness in those rooms. Moving down through the accommodation, on the right-hand side, a seating area, drop-down table, potentially for working if you wish to do so, a lounge area with settee for 2 people, and more storage space 7, which sits in front of the shower WC pod. And on towards the right-hand side at the bottom of the room, the kitchenette facility, and all studios will have these. This image gives an indication of those basic kitchenette facilities in each studio. Centrally located fridge, freezer, 2 storage areas and a bin, obviously a sink, a 2-ring hob, a combi cooker, and storage. So should you wish to stay in your room, you could do so. But the way in which the scheme is managed, given the range of facilities and additional facilities in those shared kitchen areas, you're encouraged to move out into those larger spaces. And an indication of the shower WC pod, I think, larger than typically seen in most of the build-to-rent apartments that we see. Some visualizations of that same space, just looking from different angles. And the application is supported by a management plan which sets out the arrangements in relation to the occupation of the building, the number of staff who will be attending the building or working in the building on a day-to-day basis, proposals for any issues in relation to conflict, antisocial behaviour, and also expectations in relation to tenants' responsibilities in relation to things like sustainability. The approach to the exterior of the building is relatively light touch. It's a good quality building that stood the test of time. And the primary changes really relate to replacement of all the windows above ground floor. Say at the roof level, the conversion of the plant room into some studios, and on the rear side of the building, see the blue colour element here is a stair, which will be demolished in its entirety, and the glazed facade that sits on this line of the building would be replaced. This is obviously an image of the proposals in relation to the improved entrance, additional lighting. There's not a lot of opportunity to make fundamental changes to that space, but it's about making it more inviting and welcoming into that area, as well as I mentioned, making it more accessible. I mentioned the replacement of all the windows. The existing windows are shown on the left-hand side of the image, and on the right-hand side, new windows which have improved energy performance, also allow for the ventilation proposals for the space, and also in relation to the proportions of the windows, they relate far better to the original aesthetic of the building. Just a couple of images of the elevations. It's hard to distinguish many of the changes. I've mentioned the change to all the windows. You can see on this diagram as well some of the proposed planting in the roof terraced areas at the top level. And on the back of the building, I mentioned the change to the glazed facade. Just recall that that's set back a long way from these limbs of the building, and that glazed facade would be replaced by a more contemporary approach, using a metallic rain screen finish. But the windows that would be introduced into that space would respect the datum levels of the main building and help to strengthen the appearance of the building from this side. That's just an indication of the likely pattern of the metallic rain screen element. And this diagram, excuse me, just summarises some of the many approaches to sustainability proposed as part of the scheme, not least, of course, the reuse of the existing structure. I mentioned the new windows in terms of improved energy performance, proposals for air source heat pumps, clearly additional greening, reduced amount of vehicular usage of the basement areas. So all in all, a far more sustainable building in a sustainable location, and the ambition to achieve BREEAM Excellent. And looking back into one of those shared kitchens, some of the aggregated sums in relation to the amount of amenity space in the building. I'm sure you've seen the numbers in my panel report, but I've got those summarised here if anybody needs those. And finally, a slide showing the primary benefits of the scheme. I shan't run through them all, but I think clearly introducing 230 new homes into a vacant building in the city centre will offer great opportunities for not only contributing towards housing supply, but also in terms of regeneration of the area. So just finish on the slide of the building as proposed, and I'll pass back to you now, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. We have no speakers on this item, so I'm going to move straight to questions for officers. So if members do have questions for officers, can you please indicate by raising your hand? I've got Councillor Finnegan, then Councillor Khan.
Thanks, Chair. Two questions, one on EN1, which people who've sat with me before will know I've always taken an interest in. Do we have the figures, as in 100% of what the building needs to generate and where we get the 10% from? So I know the solar panels are on the roof. Does that generate 10%? If it does, can I see the figures? And the second question is really about, does this count to potentially a future? I'm led to believe from people much more learned than I am that we're likely to get a housing target of 70,000 plus from the new government. Do these units contribute towards that housing target? Thanks, Chair.
I don't have a copy of this sustainability report with me. It's a significant document in terms of those numbers. But you saw some, I'll just go back. You saw the range of elements within the building. I think the main approach is the use of air source heat pumps to generate low carbon energy.
Just to follow up on that, we're going to have a debate about air source heat pumps and whether they do generate or whether they convert at this particular point. Historically, over the last 2 or 3 years, and colleagues to my left and right are probably bored with it, I've asked for these figures time and time and time again to be assured by Steve Butler and others that I already get these figures prior to applications coming to the planning department, referring me through to some thick document. What I want to know is 100% figure, 10%, how do you generate it? And if you're arguing about air source heat pumps, we'll come back and have that discussion another day. But at this particular point, we haven't necessarily the time as ward members to work through 200 pages to actually get these figures. So if I could stress that I'd like these figures at this particular point, I don't think it's going to influence the outcome today. But in future reports, if you are saying EN1 is satisfied, I think it's down to you to be able to provide the figures to confirm that they're satisfied. And I've made this gripe with previous chairs as well, and we never get the figures. We really do need the figures to prove it. You saying EN1 satisfied, look at this lovely document, isn't really what we're looking for.
I've certainly noted that point. I'll make sure it's included in the report. It's a question for me, but I'll do that in future. But for me, I'm afraid it's always a question of how much information to put in the report. But I certainly note that. But in terms of answering your question, Councillor, the architect's at the back of the room, and he might have a better indication of those numbers that you're looking for, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you for coming to answer this question. Did you hear the question?
I did.
Yep. Okay. Would you like to? Yeah. Would you like to answer the question? Yeah.
Councillor Finnegan, I don't know the exact number. I mean, I think we are policy compliant, but I would say that the whole sustainability approach to the building was to look at carbon reduction in general, of which the renewables is part of that. So I assume we have got the 10%. But I think for us, we have been looking at the whole carbon agenda, which has been the reuse of the existing building, the improvement of the facade, and obviously trying to improve, reduce the amount of energy the existing building actually uses. So it has been a combination of things, but the actual energy renewable number, I believe, is 10%.
I'm going to take this last one, Councillor Finnegan, because I've got other people waiting.
Honestly, at this point, and I'm a charitable guy, as people will know, and I'm quite happy to accept that you satisfy EN1 purely on the basis of you telling me that you satisfy policy EN1. Can we stress to developers and planners and everybody else, we'd rather see the evidence that you do. So 100% of the building, this is what it's going to cost to actually run the building, electricity-wise, heat-wise, whatever, at this particular point. This is how we're going to generate that 10%. We're giving us assurances and we're referring this through to BREEAM and other such things. Ain't really good enough. Thanks, Chair.
Okay.
Councillor, just on your second point in terms of contribution to the housing supply. So the MPPG allows for co-living to reflect a ratio of 1.8 co-living units to each unit. So essentially, if you do the maths, the 230 studios provide for 128 units when you looking at housing supply.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Finnegan. I will make sure that I discuss that with officers. But can I make you aware of what I said at the beginning when I said that participants are asked to maintain a courteous and respectful manner when asking questions and comments? Thank you. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tim, for the presentation. I've got two questions. One is on the highway and one for Tim. The highway question is on Walmart Row. Every time, whenever you walk past or are there, it's like a car park. It's congested, you know, and I know on page 36 at the bottom, 8.4.2, it says there's no improvements. There's a pedestrian user as well. There's taxis, then you've got services going to be accessing to the St John Centre and also to this building as well. My question is, what plans have we got to improve the that row?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So in terms of Wormald Row itself, the only proposals from this development are the, well, I was going to start with the reinstatement of the footway in front of the second shutter door. So there is proposed to be extension of footway at that point so that the crossing on that southern footway is much reduced from where it is at the moment. Tim was previously pointing out that the other works there are around putting in a loading bay, which is required for a development with this much residential within it. So we've got the loading bay there. It does displace 2 disabled parking spaces, of which we are replacing 1 on Wormald Row and 1 off-site and taking a contribution. In terms of the wider proposals for what highways are planning to do, there are no other works associated with this development, so there's no contribution beyond what I've outlined. But I think the consultation on the Woodhouse Lane Gateway proposals, which are the council's plans that include Wormald Row, have just gone live online. So the proposal mainly is for the narrowing of the access point into Wormald Row to make sure that pedestrians haven't got that very wide mouth to cross, which is a big benefit, but it also means that vehicles can't U-turn in that area in the way that they sometimes do at the moment. I think the internal issue really is an enforcement issue more than anything else, because I think apart from the disabled parking spaces and the loading bay, which will require a traffic regulation order, then the rest of the space is double yellow lined, and it's one of those issues that there isn't an awful lot of curb space at the moment for vehicles that are especially private hire that's waiting to pick up. But I think with limited space available, then the problem has to reduce to some extent. But I'm not suggesting we've got a panacea to that issue, though.
Councillor Carney wants to come back.
Yeah, just briefly, Chair. It's not good enough, actually, because we're going to be developing this new building. I think we should have factored in the drop-offs and the pickups as well, and also the pedestrian is going to increase the footfall in the area, and there's accident waiting to happen. So I think we definitely need to review this again. Just the other question on Tim is on district heating on page 18. The district heating, these pipes do go on Headrow, but then you put a condition on. Is this building going to get linked into district heating or not? Because the condition, I'm not sure what it's proposed for.
Is it possible the developer up to date is in relation to where you've got with the discussion with the district heating team? Is that okay?
Thanks, Tim. Yes, the intention is to connect. So there is a condition in there which, as usual, matters that you'd look at when you're connecting, that it's there, it's available, it's providing energy to the right levels, etc. But the intention is to connect the development.
Okay, Councillor Khan. Yeah, okay. Councillor Campbell.
I think Gillian may have covered slightly some of the questions I was going to ask. I appreciate that this is not a student development, so you're not going to get everybody turning up the first week in September. There's going to be a churn. But I was pondering today when I was on site, if I chose to move there and I turn up with my van full of my stuff, where would I go to unload it and then obviously move on? So you did talk about a loading bay. I think I'd like a little more explanation about how you might manage that. I think the second point really relates, if you stand on Wormhole Road, I think we all say, don't we, Wormhole Road is one of the most depressing streets in Leeds, quite frankly. You're on there, it's full of private hire vehicles, manoeuvring, sitting, various people, some people with disabled badges, some without, some very bad parking. And I appreciate that that's something to do with enforcement. I think you'd probably have an enforcement officer down there full time. But the frontage onto Wormholt Street from this development really doesn't do much to lift the street. And I was wondering if there's an opportunity. I appreciate you need to get into the basement car park. But all that frontage on there is blank, uninspired, actually just downright depressing. And I wondered if you could look at, or it was possible to look at, doing something with that frontage to lift it up, to make it more vibrant, make it more, you know, to encourage people to use it. I do think also about the entrance, and I appreciate we're in a difficult position here because you've got an existing building, and so it's not like a new build. But the entrance at the moment looks like a pretty seedy 1930s hotel to me. I'm interested to know how you'd open that up and open the space in front of it up to make it more of a welcoming position. And I think if somebody could just explain, I presume it's number 6 on this plan, which is, you said effectively upgrade the pavement along that side and round the corner to number 5. In what way are we going to upgrade the pavement? And more importantly, how can we upgrade the pavement in such a way that it stops private hire vehicles parking on it? And I appreciate that on the opposite side of the road, we've introduced some of these curved curbs, which make it impossible to get the car up there. So I'm just wondering about what we're doing with that pavement to actually allow pedestrians to use it rather than it to be somewhere where you just stick the car while you're popping into town. So that's a question for 2 sets of people, I think.
So, would you like to answer the questions about how people move in and, move into the property and move out and where they put the van, etc.? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, so in terms of move in, move out, there's 2 dedicated bays in the basement. So that said van will be able to go down into the basement and they'll be able to take the goods, the belongings, for want of a better phrase, from there, helped by the management team, up to the core living unit above. And I think, as you see from the imagery, it is down to personal belongings. You're not bringing furniture in because each of the rooms and all the communal spaces are all fitted out. So that will be how move in, move out. So it's not done at street level, it's done underground, out of view, as it were. I think in terms of Wormholt Row, I'll pass over to Jeremy, who's our architect, because I think in terms of opening up Wormholt Road, obviously we can take away and look at opportunities to provide a more active frontage. But obviously there's constraints there in terms of what the functions are, because most of the ground floor is commercial units, as you can see from the image here. You've then got the entrance to the development from Dortmund Square, and then along the back of the scheme, it's those other functions that need to be at ground level. But I'll pass over to Joe to look at that, and also to talk about his approach to opening up the entrance and making that much more inviting, should we say.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Chair. The Wormhole Row elevation is something we did have a look at, and I think what we've tried to do is working with the existing building and fabric is to maintain as much active edge and active facade as possible. So part of that has been to protect the existing retail, which is in Albion Way, Dortmund Square, and on the Headrow. So the entire building is being serviced from Wormhole Row, which is the existing commercial unit, and then the proposed residential building above. We've also had to bring the building up to standard with the new fire regulations, which has caused us to increase the size of cores and have different means of escape and fire access. So the whole building has to be serviced from Wormholt Row. And we've done that because that is the existing service road. We've kind of lent into that and maintained that relationship with the city centre to maintain and protect the frontages on the other 3 streets. Okay.
Okay, officers, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, it's the TRIF curbing that's gone in on the other side, but I think that was a lot more to do with the keeping the heavy goods vehicles away from the footway on that side of the road, rather than necessarily preventing vehicles from parking. I wouldn't have thought it was the right option to look at that for the southern side, but I think if you wanted to make sure vehicles didn't park on there, which they don't often park on the actual footway, it's more because, you know, there is that space on the carriageway that they can stop in, park in. But if you did, I would suggest you'd need to widen that footway and then potentially put something like bollards along to ensure it was physically not possible to get up there. I don't think a curb in itself would do it.
Well, I'll take professional advice. There was somebody parked on the pavement when we were there this morning. It's always the same, isn't it? I think we at the moment, that is a stretch of pavement which is in a poor condition. I appreciate that. And it positively discourages people from using the pavement. So people walk down the middle of the road, don't they? And I think if we've got the opportunity as part of this work to create a pavement that's more usable, then that's an opportunity we should grasp. And so I'm not actually suggesting a solution myself. I'm simply saying that if we're going to relay the pavement, we need to do it in such a way that, one, it discourages car owners from parking on it, and 2, makes it a surface that people are prepared and willing to use. I'll just throw that into the...
Okay, thank you. We'll, in the summing up, we can address that. Any other questions to officers? No? Okay. In that case, I'll move on to comments then. Do members have comments? Councillor Cohen?
Thanks, Chair. I think the challenge with this is it's completely new and completely different. We haven't got lots of this in the city, and therefore there's almost an initial gut response that goes, oh, we don't like that. But I think the reality is this is a model that we see around the world, and modern, forward-thinking, metropolitan, diverse cities are ever more going to be delivering this type of development. I think it, is it perfect? No. But I think it's providing it seems to me, a good product that ultimately the market will decide whether it wants. And I'm sure the developers have assured themselves that there is the appropriate demand, and therefore I have to say, Chair, personally I think it's a good development, and I'm prepared to support it. I take on board the points Councillor Carnes made, but I think they can probably, hopefully, be addressed through conditioning and the like. And therefore, when the time comes, Chair, I'm happy to move.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cohen. I've got Councillor Khan next, then Councillor Dye, Councillor Campbell and Councillor Finnegan. So Councillor Khan, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just follow on from Councillor Cohen. I do think this is going to be a great development. It will enhance the area and also it will increase the footfall. And it's at least early on it said it's not a student accommodation. We're not against the student accommodation, but however, but this is going to, I do welcome this development, and I will say I hope, and the questions I've raised, I hope they're going to get addressed as well. Otherwise, I do welcome this development. Thank you. Oh, sorry. And I will second after Councillor Cohen's motion.
Thank you. Glasnow's broken out. Excellent. Councillor Dye.
Thank you. I also support the use of the building. I'm particularly pleased to see a building being reused rather than demolished and rebuilt, and I welcome the commitment to connect to the district heating. My only comment really in terms of something to look at would be that pavement area. It was extremely busy when we were there, congested, people not following the rules about where they should be parking, and anything we can do to protect pedestrians I think will be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Campbell, please.
I think we are where we are with this one, aren't we? In that it's an existing building. It's an existing building that is of a style and perhaps, dare I say, of a quality that we'd wish to preserve, unlike the opposite side of the road that we had, what would it be, 3-4 months ago, where it was a sort of 1970s, 80s development that we're glad to see the back of. So this conforms to that style of there. And I think the limited exterior work, which is to in effect to replace the windows, more accurately reflects what the original would have looked like. I think Dan's point's interesting because well, I think I go back to 2022 when this first came round, and the world was a different place then, and I think we might well have asked questions about whether it's a viable scheme or you know, do we really need it? And I think we've moved on, and I think the world's moved on, and I think we've now accepted in principle, haven't we, that this co-living for grown-ups, providing we can control it, is another one to put in the mix. And so I've no concerns about that. I did have several concerns when we did the original one. So I've no concerns about the principle. And I think you may be surprised when I say this, but I have to say to the developers, thank you. And the thank you relates to the fact that I think you they came along in, or somebody came along in 2022 with a set of proposals which Plans Panel expressed a number of views about. And I think it's fair to say that listening to the people on site today, many of those comments have obviously been taken on board. And if I'm also honest, I got a better understanding of how they see the market has changed over the last 2 years and continues to change. And I think this development reflects all those elements. And so I'm more than happy to support the principle. I would continue to flag up Wormald Row. And I think we really ought to ask, yes, I'm prepared to defer and delegate, I'm fine with that, but we really need to ask for something better on Wormald Road. And it may be that the developer goes and looks at their facade, and it also requires us, highways, to look at the pedestrian environment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Finnegan.
Very, very briefly, happy to support this particular application. We've been debating and discussing at this plans panel and others what you're going to do with a lot of these buildings that are certainly in the city centre. You need to repurpose them because you're not going to use them as office space in the future, and that's a big positive. It's better for the environments that we can repurpose these particular buildings. Clearly this sort of accommodation is not pitched to people of my age. That's probably a good thing. It's pitched at a...
No, it isn't. It is actually. You could go there. I could go there.
Well, theoretically, at this particular point. It would be going back to the old bedsit that they had back in the 1970s. Perhaps not. But having said that, I think Councillor Cohen hit the nail on the head at this particular point about the fact that the world is changing. This is offering different accommodation. Younger people see things entirely and utterly differently to the way that we see things. So it's a good reuse of a building. It's a big positive. I think it is identifying a trend that is actually out there, even if I don't necessarily understand it personally. we are getting a good significant contribution towards affordable housing. Nobody's mentioned that, but I think that's a big positive. And I think the developers have moved to try and present an imaginative way of reusing a building. So I'm happy to support, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We did have the debate on site, Councillor Finnegan, as to whether we should have a floor for us oldies or whether we should have intergenerational living in these schemes. So the debate was taking place on site, absolutely, about our generation. Councillor Anderson.
Can I just briefly to add, I totally support it. And what I was very impressed with this morning when we were on site is the leisure and recreational side that you've looked into, so that it's become a place for people that can live in. Okay, they've got the room that they can retire to in the night, not as in retire, but you know, once they've had a busy day, fine, they can sleep there. But there are a number of other options for people to spend their time either on their own or collectively, if they so wish to do so, and particularly the eating ways that you can hire out particular parts if you wanted to have a party in any sense of the word party. So I personally welcome this development.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Anderson. If there's no further comments, I'll ask officers if there's anything else they want to clarify on this. No? Okay, okay. Can I ask you to sum up, Daljit, please?
Yeah, thank you, members. So I think in terms of the principle of the use, there's overwhelming support. There are some detailed questions that have been raised, particularly around the condition of Wormwood Row. As made clear in the discussion, there are some constraints around what can be done there, but the Council is going out to consultation with plans for improvements along Woodhouse Lane, which includes this part of Wormwood Row, and it's something we can look at in terms of opportunities for making sure pedestrian movement in particular is enhanced. There were some questions about the sustainability credentials. I know Councillor Finnegan wants the actual figures brought to future panels. I'm sure that can be accommodated, but the building is meeting our sustainability policies, and particularly I know Councillor Dye's comments about the reuse of the building and the developer's commitment to trying to use our district heating network, which are all key aspects, I think, of sustainability, in my view. So overall, members are supportive of the proposal. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor, based on the summary then, and that we will look at Wormwood Row in that consultation, Councillor Cohen, I understand that you are happy to propose the recommendation on page 11?
I did so some time ago, yes, Chair.
And I'm happy to second that.
Okay,
proposal.
thank you, Councillor Khan. Sorry, turn my microphone off, apologies. Can members indicate by show of hands whether they are happy to accept that recommendation? Okay, thank you, that's unanimous. There was a late hand went up there, but that's unanimous. Okay, so that's carried, thank you, members. That recommendation is carried. Do we need to summarise from that? Are we all happy with that? Yeah. Okay, right. Let's. Thank you, everybody, and thank you for coming and answering questions. Thank you. Okay, we're now going to move on to agenda item 8. So that's the pre-application for Wellington Place. Okay. And thank you. Sorry, I was just going to say, can I invite you to the table? But you're already coming. Thank you. I'm just letting people move over. Okay, thank you for coming to see us this afternoon. Can I ask you now to present your proposals for the pre-application, please?
Thank you, Chair and members. I'm Oliver from the Planning Agent, acting on behalf of the applicant from ID Planning. I'll just pass you over.
Good afternoon. Miles Jones from MEPC. We're the Asset and Development Managers at Wellington Place.
Good afternoon. My name's Jason Turner. I'm the lead architect at TP Bennett for the scheme, and I'll be taking you through the presentation. Okay, so thank you for taking the time to review our presentation. I'll be talking you through the scheme proposals for 14 Wellington Place. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the site. Just as a very quick refresh, Wellington Place is a business-led estate on the west of the city centre, bounded by the River Aire to the west and Whitehall Road to the south. It's approximately 5 minutes walk from Leeds City's train station, and it sits within the Leeds Innovation Arc. There's a couple of images on the slide there for the most recent developments that have come forward. In the central one there, 9 Wellington Place, was approved in 2022, is yet to come to complete. But yeah, just a quick snapshot of the most recent proposals. Okay, so zooming into the estate, you can see in the sort of pink colour there, 14 Wellington Place in the red line. So that's the site we're talking about. So it's bounded to the west by the River Aire, to the south by the key kind of arterial boulevard through the site, which has always been quite an important part of the wider master plan, connecting through to the Holbeck Viaduct and the Winia Park over to the west of Leeds there. It's bound on the south by Viaduct Yard, which is a new area of public realm approved as part of the 9 Wellington Place planning application in 2022. The proposals include the extension of some of that landscape treatment across from 12 and up from 9, just to continue to deliver the quality of public realm that's in place at Wellington Place to date. Okay, and quick snapshot of the planning context, the most recent planning context. So the site was master planned back in 2008 with an outline planning permission, and then 4 Wellington Place came forward in 2017. Following that, the site 2 of the estate was taken back to an outline planning permission, and then off the back of that, 11 and 12 Wellington Place and 9 Wellington Place secured reserved matters consent. 11 and 12 completed February 2022, and 9 Wellington Place has got consent, as I've said. And then just those 2 images on the bottom there, the viaduct link and the lifting tower, were separate applications, but have since been delivered to a very high quality, improving the heritage links of the site and the quality of the public realm. Okay, so just to quickly cover off connectivity through the site, so there's very good pedestrian permeability. We've highlighted the 2 main areas of public realm there. So you've got Tower Yard next to the Grade 2 listed lifting tower, and Viaduct Square to the south of 14. Both very generously public spaces provided. In terms of vehicular access, there's a connection through from Wellington Street, as indicated, around the north of 2, and then a shared access road between 12 and the proposals at 14. Which is how the building will be serviced, and access for fire tenders and the like. So this is an aerial view of the estate to date. You can see 7 and 8 Wellington Place on the right of 11 and 12 there. I'll just skip to the next one. Sorry, not that one. So the Holbeck Viaduct is just off screen to the bottom right-hand corner of that screen, of that image rather. 9 Wellington Place will fill the gap next to Whitehall Road there, and 14 to the bottom of the image of 12 in that image. So in terms of approaching the massing, we reviewed the outline consent as part of the 2019 outline planning permission. Those are the plot parameters that were approved in 3D form. We then extruded that to the maximum plot parameters approved in terms of the datums above ordnance datum. But as the building 14 Wellington Place, the proposal is to bring it forward as a commercial office development. The requirements of the floor plate from brief and sort of market needs are different. So we reviewed the mass against market requirements for floor plate. So we started to reshape that mass. You can see there we've tweaked that northeast corner there to share a dialogue with 11 and 12 and have a little bit more of a rational more structurally efficient floor plate. And then we rebalanced the two masses to provide a sort of market viable form to the building. The next move to the mast was to provide an articulated rake to the roof form. This is something that's been done on many of the buildings on the estate. The approach there is to provide a plant screen which rakes from high in the east to low in the west, so it's kind of falling like the embankment of the river. And the intent there is that the larger, perhaps slightly noisier elements of plant could be located on the southeast corner, furthest from adjacent residential developments over the river, and from 15 Wellington Place as a future development plot. And then the last move from Mass was to push back the grounding first and to create a colonnade, give a little bit more space back to the public realm. And then from level 4 upwards there, you can see we've inset balconies and terraces, which is a move that was we seem to be successful on 11 and 12 Wellington Place, and has been approved in 9, so it's sharing a dialogue with the two buildings most adjacent. Okay, in terms of architectural concept, we've taken reference and clues from the Grade 2 listed viaduct adjacent to the site. We've referenced it in several ways, so I'll just walk you through some of those. The first image there is the sort of rig or vertical expression. We've taken that, and that was a language also present in 12 Wellington Place, so we're extending a vertical expression through into the site. And then the bottom images there, there's across the sort of viaduct, there's this local thickening of a buttress which supports the larger spans, and it has this rebated detail which you can see circled in blue there. That rebated detail we've used to further accentuate the vertical elements of the facade. So we've applied that to the vertical columns. These diagrams are slightly tweaked from the master plan design guide, but we've strongly referenced the outline consent intent. The first one there is to provide a clear base, middle and top. I'll talk you through how that's delivered as part of the scheme. Generally on a 7.5 metre structural grid. Second diagram, we've introduced intermediate columns, and that in part is to further accentuate the vertical emphasis of the facade, but it's also to increase the solidity of the facade so that we're controlling solar gain, heat loss through a very efficient solid element of facade, and it's in line with LETI guidance for the glazing proportions on the facade. And then the third diagram, we've taken clues from some of the buildings on the estate which carve the building into a double height bay expression. So 8 Wellington Place, quite close to the site, has a double bay expression. That's something we've done so that hopefully that's clear on the elevations. And these are some of the most recent buildings on the estate. We've taken clues from each of those really. So 4 Wellington Place on the top left has a very clear vertical expression. 7 and 8 on the top right has a double bay expression. 11 and 12 on the bottom right has warm tones, bronze tones, metallic elements, inset balconies, inset terraces. We've taken all those elements, and then 9 Wellington Place, the kind of warmth, the tone, the rigour and the sort of pointed balustrades. We're kind of bringing these things together in the proposals. Okay, and one of the things we really enjoy about working on this estate is that every building sets a benchmark for sustainable development, and which is to be bettered with each subsequent development. So on 11 and 12 Wellington Place achieved an EPCA, Neighbours 5-star, Fitwell 2-star and BREEAM Outstanding. This building goes a step further by meeting all those credentials and pushing to get a Neighbours 5.5-star. So just to touch on Neighbours, for those who aren't as familiar perhaps, Neighbours is about closing the energy performance gap. So EPC is a design metric which can be missed. Neighbours is you get the full certification when the building's been occupied to 75% for a year and you report on energy metrics. So if you don't hit the design target, that rating drops. So it's about closing that performance gap and actually meeting what you aim for. And what we're aiming for on this one is Neighbours 5.5-star, which is 6 stars, the best you can get. So it's amongst the best in class around the world office performance for operational energy. As part of that, it'll be an all-electric building, so no fossil fuels used on site, and it'll be net zero in operation. We've not set the embodied carbon target just yet. We're working through that, but as I said, every project benchmarks the next. So we're expected to be better on this one than the previous two, and we're working hard on the materials, circularity and all that sort of thing to make that happen. Okay, so I'll just walk you through the floor plan. So this is the ground floor plan. We've designed it so the building is read in the round as much of the estate is, so as much active frontage as possible. We've concentrated the necessary back of house facilities to the east on this diagram, so linking to the shared access road, so that can serve the refuse collection, substations and the like. Generally, we've got flexible commercial uses around the base. On the south and on the west, you can see the setback colonnade, and you've got a shared business lounge and reception. Moving up through the building, you've got a centrally located core. This is the first floor, so you can read the setback colonnade, and there's a carve in the floor plate to provide a double height entrance space. From level 4 upwards, we introduce inset balconies and couplings of two at a time to work with the double bay expression. They alternate between the southeast and southwest corners of the building. And then there's a generous terrace provided at level 11. At basement level, access is provided from the access ramp approved as part of the 9 Wellington Place consent, and then the link to the right-hand side of that page. We propose to provide 40 parking spaces as a mix of accessible bays, standard bays, and electric vehicle charging. And then we're providing best-in-class shower, changing and locker facilities, which are planning BCO and BREEAM compliant. In terms of the elevations, you can see this is the south elevation from Viaduct Yard. You can see that raked form of the roof softened by this scallop detail on the facade, which I'll talk you through shortly. You've got the inset balconies, which are greened similarly to 9 Wellington Place. Hopefully you can read in that a very clear double height bay plinth to the building. I'll talk you through the materials in a bit more detail as we wrap around. So this is the west elevation, looking as if you're looking from the River Aire. And then wrapping around to the north, you can see as much active frontage as possible. And then as you get to the east, there's the slightly local area of back of house, which is dressed as neat and aluminium pit powder coated louvers. Then onto the facade. So taking that concept of the viaduct a little further still, what we did is take the expression of an arc, but it didn't feel right to apply that and the elevation to the building. It would be so much of a deviation from the estate. So we rotated that through 90 degrees such that the arc is carved in plan. And the benefit of that is you read the effect of the arc in the shadow on the elevation, which adds a bit of interest as the sort of sun moves throughout the day. And then we took that concept a little bit further into the detail as well. So to further accentuate the plinth at the base of the building, we took a literal diagram of the viaduct and rotated that through 90 degrees to provide this rich fluty texture to the base of the building. The design is providing hybrid ventilation, so there's a perforated mesh panel with opening lights behind. The perforated pattern for that is inspired by the idea of the arc of the viaduct and its reflection in the River Aire. So that provides this kind of pattern and richness to the detailing of the building. You can also see on this image that kind of rebaited buttress detail in the vertical fins, which I mentioned earlier. Materiality, so we're looking at a form of concrete rain screen cladding, richly fluted at ground and first, and then rebaited for the levels above. And the colour is a slightly kind of dark bluey tone, but it's got richness, rich aggregate of bronze tones to provide a texture and references to other buildings on the estate. We've got a light bronze accent trim, which is the same bronze as used on 11 and 12 Wellington Place to subtly reference the building. And then we've got the dark bronze, which again is the same as what was used on the plant screen for 7 and 8 and on 11 and 12. And then we're looking at timber effect soffits to warm the building as you read it from the kind of human eye level. And then getting into some images. So this is a view from Whitehall Road, as I'm sure you're familiar. That's the view of 9 Wellington Place as approved in 2022, and the cumulative view of 14 Wellington Place dropping into that view. So you can see how that starts to complete the estate in a successful way. And you can see the terrace there, that loggia at the top of the building, really softens the building as you get to see the sky through the top of the building. This is a view as you approach from the west across the River Aire over the Grade 2 listed viaduct. You can see in this view, even from a kind of distant view, you see the richness of the articulation and the detailing of the facade, and the impact of these inset balconies and terraces. Here's a view from Viaduct Yard, looking past the elevation of 9 Wellington Place towards the main entrance. So you can see how that double height expression of the main entrance really has a grandeur and a presence which will assist with legibility and wayfinding to the main entrance. And lastly, this is a view looking through that key arterial boulevard, which I mentioned, east-west through the site, looking past 12, and you can see how the inset balconies and the colonnade at 12 Wellington Place is extended through to 14 to help with the way the building's articulated and to help with navigation to the main entrance of the building. Okay, thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Very informative presentation. Thank you. Members, do we have questions? Councillor Jones and Councillor Finnegan.
How many people do you expect to work in this building? And the reason I ask that is 40 car parking spaces seems very minimal to me. Now, I know you've got lots of bike riding spaces there, but my experience is that most people on that site and the location will probably not. I worked on the site opposite, by the way, for many, many years, so I know the site quite well. Other than that, I actually welcome this. I think it's pretty much, but I have concerns about the number of car parking spaces. I don't think it fits the size of the building, unless you're going to tell me only about 100 people will work in the building.
Thanks for the question. In terms of the means in which people get to Wellington Place, we're obviously incredibly well served with the train station. We've recently got the park and ride service to along Whitehall Road. We engage with, we've appointed 4 consultancy as our travel coordinator, and they work really hard working with all of the occupiers in terms of their means of travel, whether that be through using the on-site bikes that are available to hire free of charge, or whether it's using the end-of-journey facilities. We do consistently move occupiers towards using more sustainable means of travel rather than cars. And we've successfully seen that in 11 and 12 as well, which is actually a bigger building with only a marginally greater number of spaces. And we haven't had any challenges with that.
Okay, you want to come back, Councillor Jones? Yep.
Right. The railway station is about half a mile away. That will be acceptable. There's only 2 buses that run down that road, right? So I'm slightly sceptical that people will use a bus to get there, or they will actually, because the bus will be one coming from Batley and that direction. There's nothing coming the other way, unless people are going to walk from where the old Yorkshire Post building used to be. So I'm quite clear that I don't think 40 actually fits, and I'm quite clear on that. The rest of it I haven't got a problem with, but I'm concerned that you will end up causing more on-street parking further up Whitehall Road, which is already quite congested anyway.
We can by all means look at that and give you some comfort around the way in which people come to Wellington Place. Oliver, you want to come in?
Yeah, it's just to add, the planning application will be supported by a sort of further update to the travel plan, which has been sort of progressed over the past 10 years on the estate, as Miles has described.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Finnegan.
Thanks, Chair. A couple of questions. One is, previous application to yours, we had an office building that there wasn't demand for the office space. And I think that tends to be the case, people working from home and other such things. So I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about how you think you can book that particular trend and why. And the second one, and I'm sure this is a one answer to this particular question, none of this cladding burns, does it? Taking into account previous problems and difficulties. We are at the highest possible fire
I'll come in on the second one first on the basis that's most important. Yeah, fully non-combustible. So, yeah. And on the first question, there's still great demand for the right office product. There is a real appetite, certainly among the occupiers we speak to, around getting staff back into the office or into the office, providing the right facilities. Wellington Place is certainly of all the new accommodation is nigh on full and well utilised. It comes down to not just the building, but also what we provide across the estate in terms of all the engagement and community that people really do welcome and enjoy.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gavani next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Generally, I think this looks really good. It's in keeping and everything with the rest of that site. The query I have got is over the bridge that's proposed from the corner of number 14 over to City Island. It says either on occupation of either plots 15 or 16 or within 10 years. That seems to be a long time. Can it be done any quicker?
So that's an obligation from the 2019 planning consent, and it's down to the sort of phasing of those buildings. It's an obligation to provide it no later than no later than the completion of plot 14, as you've seen, as we're presenting today, 15, or by 29. Our intention will be to do it in the most logical point along the development, and it's something we've got eyes on, and certainly the team have considered as part of this project to ensure understand exactly how it will knit into the overall scheme.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Dye next, please.
Thank you. Lewis, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to go back to, I think it was slide 70. Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. Can you clarify the pink on that? Is the plan for that all to be commercial use?
The intention is for it to be flexible, so either commercial or office or F&B, and to support the amenities on the estate, as we've done on the other across the other buildings. There's a bit of demand led there as well in terms of finding the right use to complement the estate and the placemaking, but also ensuring the active frontages.
Thank you. So it could be office, that pink bit. Sorry, just to be absolutely clear.
Apologies, I wasn't clear enough. Yes, it could be office ground floor.
Thank you. Councillor Cohen next.
Thank you. Sorry to come back to parking and travel. I just want to clarify something. Question 1. Would I be right in saying that the number of car parking spaces provided would be policy compliant if it were to go ahead on that basis? And number 2, am I right in thinking that the park and ride buses go past where the site is? I used to be, my offices used to be, my factory used to be on Globe Road. So I used to kind of drive, when it was the Jolly Giants, and I think the air side. Yeah, I'm that old. I am that old. See? Oil of Ole. Yeah, but just those two. I mean, the site is vastly improved from the hideousness that used to be there. It was probably the dreariest shopping centre Leeds ever managed to produce, which is there's a crown to be proud of. So those two questions, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, just to cover off with regards to the parking provision, it will be policy compliant in accordance with the SPD in terms of the minimal elements, and obviously as rehearsed through, there'll be a detailed travel plan which sets out the relevant policies within that document. Likewise, with regards to the transport statement, there's consideration of with regards to the wider connection through to the park and ride down to Ellen Road, as Miles has described earlier on.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions, members? No, in that case, I'll move on to comments. Anybody got any comments that they want to make? Yes, Councillor Cohen.
I accidentally snuck in some comments before. As I said, I think that, you know, Wellington Place is a really dynamic, it's an ever-growing, more dynamic part of the city. It's in a great location, it's delivering jobs, it's delivering great place. I think this is I love the design concept. I think it really fits in well to the vibe of Wellington Place overall, and as you say, it's raising that benchmark. So I think it's a really positive development, and I look forward to answering the questions really soon.
Okay, Councillor Dye and then Councillor Finnegan, please.
Thank you. I would also support those comments, and I'm particularly impressed by the BRIAM outstanding and your neighbours 5-star. I think that's really impressive. The reason I wanted to go back to that slide is that yes, it is turning into a really dynamic, attractive part of the city, but one of the most attractive bits of it to me is if you're in that area, and particularly if the sun's shining and people are sitting outside the cafes and restaurants and things, that really animates the area. And so I would be really keen to see as much of this ground floor used for that kind of occupation, because it really enhances the area. It kind of stops that sterility of it being lots of office buildings, and also it's a good place for people who are working there to spend their time. So I think, yeah, that's comment 1, that's comment 2. Did I mention trees? Really good to see the irrigation condition on the trees. Very supportive of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dye. Councillor Finnegan next, please.
Thanks, Chair. You may have heard that discussion about EN1 and EN2. Can we have the figures at that particular point and save our planning colleagues any hassle on that one? And can we have absolute clarity on the landscaping scheme as well when it comes in? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we'll pick that up, Councillor Finnegan, make sure it's included. Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Just to echo the comments being said in a positive way, and I also think the area, the building are modern, state of art for office spaces, and I do remember back in 1989 when I started working around that area, and from then and now, it has transformed, and it's welcoming, and it's unrecognisable. And it's cool and it's good actually as well. Recently, I was with my 2 granddaughters at the Leeds light night, and I've heard some residents commenting, "Oh, we've not been here for a long time. Look, it's beautiful. It can't be Leeds." And I just walked past. I said, "It is Leeds, and we are. It's a great area." So I just want to say thank you for transforming that area. Thank you. Well done.
Fantastic. Good to know, Councillor Khan, that people were so positive about it. Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, just a couple of points like everybody else. I think this seems to be a very positive development. I am conscious of the fact that one of the things we're being asked to do, isn't it, is that if my memory of the original master plan is correct, this was supposed to be a site for a mixed development, so there should have been some housing. I think time passes on, and I think if we were doing a master plan now, we wouldn't probably include that, because obviously the market dictates and there's plenty of housing on the opposite side of the road anyway. So in principle, am I happy that we lose the housing element that might have been on here? Yes, I'm fine with that. I would just say, just when you come back, I would be interested in what I assume is the bottom of this drawing here, and effectively the riverbank, because this development, when it's in use, will open up part of the riverbank. And I think we need to understand how that area will be managed and what it will look like. I know that the long term is for a bridge, but it's not shown on there, and I think it will be useful, well, for me anyway, to get some sort of idea of what you're hoping to do on that section. Right, thank you.
Okay, any further comments on this? No? Okay, in that case, we are invited to look at the questions and address those on page 67 of your report. So if does everyone have those questions in front of them? Okay, thank you. I will go through them. So the first one, do members support the proposed end use of the building? Yep, everyone in agreement, thank you. Do members support the proposals in respect of design, scale, form and detailing? Yep. Okay, thank you everyone. Do members support the proposed approach to landscaping and pedestrian connectivity? Yep. Oh. Yes, yeah. Daljit's making notes from the discussion we've had, yeah. And do members support the proposal in terms of highways matters? In principle, okay. Well, we obviously this will be coming back to panel, so we can look at that. Anything you want to add to that? No? Okay. Right, everyone, thank you. And sorry, first of all, I want to say thank you for coming and making your presentation to us today. Really interesting and great to see that part of the city developing as it is. As Councillor Khan mentioned, you know, people are making comments on how good that area of the city is looking. So thank you for the work that you're doing there. Okay, date and time of the next meeting, members, is Thursday the 5th of December at 1:30. That concludes the business of today's meeting, and thank you everybody for your attendance and your contributions. I now declare the meeting closed, and people can now make their way out of the building. Thank you everybody for a very comradely meeting. Thank you.